Ready for adventure. Discover a new culture. See how we eat, how we dress, how we speak on my side of the world. This is what you'll see. Let me take you there, let me take you with me. Come and follow me.
Hallo, ik ben Livijne. Ik ben 11 jaar. Ik woon in Woerden en dat ligt in Nederland.
Hello, I'm Livijne. I'm 11. I live in Woerden, a little town in the Netherlands. Mom and I are trying to think of what to give Dad for his birthday. I want to give him something original, something typical from my country, but what? But first let me see how much money I've got in my shoe bank. 2, 3, 4 euros. The euro is the common currency for countries that belong to the European Union, of which the Netherlands is a member. I have a little more than 30 euros. That should be enough for a really nice present. I asked Mom to do my hair in bunches, using electric bands that look like the Dutch flag, red, white, and blue. We begin our study of the Netherlands with its capital, Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, you realize just how big the population of the Netherlands is. My country has 16 million inhabitants, but because they're spread over a very small area of land, it has one of the most dense populations in the world. The inhabitants of the Netherlands are called the Dutch. Our society is made up of all sorts of people from different origins, and we're very proud of this diversity. We all speak the same language, Dutch.
De NRC is een goed Hollands handelsblad. We mogen hem namelijk 2 weken gratis thuis bezorgen.
Our language is written in the Roman alphabet. Our country is a kingdom.
Wij willen graag een kaart waar de koningin op... Ja, nou...
Beatrix is the name of our queen. You see her picture on postcards. She's reigned since 1980. Amsterdam is well known for its canals, which stretch for miles and miles. You discover them best by boat. These canals were built almost 500 years ago, at the time when Amsterdam was one of the most prestigious cities in the world. These aquatic streets show just how important water is in the life of the Dutch. We're a people of sailors. Here's a copy of an old sailing ship, the Batavia, which used to belong to the Dutch East India Company. In those days, our country was Europe's main trader in spices. They sent ships like this one all over the world to bring back pepper, cinnamon, or cloves. Life on board these ships was rough and dangerous. They had to use cannons to defend themselves from pirates. Maybe we can find a present for Dad in the Naval Museum shop. Something that reminds you of those old days, like a model ship, for example. This one's very beautiful, but it's much too big. It would be difficult to carry. This one's very nice, but I haven't got enough money to buy it. Hey, that one's not too expensive, but it's a bit too small for Dad. Let's keep on looking. We're back on the canals to continue our visit of Amsterdam. You see a lot of bells, but not always on Catholic churches. There are also Protestant churches. Those are the 2 main religions practiced in the country. There's also an important Muslim community, as well as a small Jewish community. In fact, we're coming to Anne Frank's house now. She was a young Jewish girl who wrote one of the most famous books in the Netherlands. To discover the place where she lived, you have to pass through a secret passage behind a bookcase. In 1942, during the Second World War, Anne Frank lived in hiding here with her whole family in order to escape being arrested by the German Nazis who were hunting down the Jews. They stayed in this hiding place for more than 2 years, but then they were arrested shortly before the end of the war. During the family's time in hiding, Anne kept a diary telling their story. She was only 13 years old. After the war, Anne Frank's diary was published. It's very moving to see the original, especially when you think that she wasn't a lot older than I am when she wrote her book. In the museum bookstore, they sell the Diary of Anne Frank in many translations. It's been published all over the world. I've never read it, so I'm buying a copy in Dutch, but it's for me, not Dad. To look for inspiration for our present, let's go to the museums. Dutch painters have been famous for centuries. The oldest masters, like Rembrandt or Vermeer, are at the Royal Museum. Vermeer's painting of the milkmaid is very well known. The Van Gogh Museum is more recent. This 19th century painter was a genius. You can see that in his self-portrait. Vincent van Gogh lived his entire life in poverty, and yet today his paintings are worth a fortune. I love them, because even if Van Gogh lived a very sad life, his pictures are always gay and colorful. In the shop you can find lots of souvenirs in the colors of Van Gogh's paintings, but they're not really Dad's style. Right, visiting Amsterdam was interesting, but we didn't find anything. We get on our bikes and go home. The bicycle is the most common form of transport in the Netherlands. Here near the central train station in the gigantic parking place, there are almost 5,000 bikes. In my country, we always go by bike when it's a short trip. Also, it's the best way to see the Dutch countryside. Even though the country's very densely populated, you can still see a lot of large cultivated areas and fields where animals are grazing. Ugh, that's disgusting. The cow licked my finger. Further on, fields of flowers seem to stretch forever. In fact, our country's the world's biggest flower producer. We sell millions of them every year. You often see windmills in the country. There are a lot of them because the winds are very strong here and they blow all year round. Let's go visit one. The ladder inside the windmill is very steep, and we're only on the first floor. In the main part of the windmill, there's all sorts of machinery. The movement of the sails works these machines, and that's how the wheat is milled into flour. The Woerden windmill was built nearly 250 years ago, and it's still working. The stronger the wind, the faster the sails go. Sometimes they get up to 60 kilometers an hour. Fortunately, the miller's there to make sure the mill doesn't go too fast. When the windmill stops, the miller will position the sails to let people know the reason. A long rest? A short rest? A death in the family? Or maybe it's a birth. Today, we build modern mills called aliens, which produce electricity. And as we've no shortage of wind, you see thousands of them all over the country. To house the large populations in the Netherlands, land has been reclaimed from the sea using mills. They pump out the water, thus draining the land. They're called polders. It's not uncommon to see houses built below the level of the canals or the rivers, because a large part of the country is below sea level. For example, the altitude of Amsterdam Airport is 4.50 meters below sea level, and it's one of the biggest airports in the world. The real one, I mean, because this one's only a model. We're at Maduro Dam, a theme park with model reproductions of the country's main monuments. It's good fun. You feel like a giant. For example, the Amsterdam football stadium is here. A loudspeaker plays the national anthem. It's true that football's a very popular sport in my country. These tiny players are wearing the orange jersey. Orange is the color of the Dutch royal family. A little further on is a model of Europort, the port of Rotterdam, the largest commercial shipping port in the world. It's on the North Sea coast. It's a very rough sea and the water's very cold. Even the bravest of the brave only swim in it during the summer holidays. There are calmer waters in the Netherlands as well, but it's not exactly seawater. I'm talking about IJsselmeer, a giant man-made lake. An enormous dike was built to cut off a stretch of water that used to be part of the sea. On the Volendam Bridge, you can eat the best herring in the whole of the Netherlands, but you have to stuff the whole raw fish into your mouth in one go. Ugh, I think it's disgusting. Mom has thought of a very funny present.
Ja.
A photo of the two of us in traditional Dutch costume. Let's hope it's a good photo. This birthday present dilemma is beginning to worry me, so Mum suggests going to the cheese market to get some ideas. Cheese is a very important food in the Netherlands. We eat it for breakfast and lunch. Our cheeses are surrounded by wax that preserves them and makes them easy to transport. In this traditional market, which has existed for 300 years, the porters run carrying 8 huge Gouda cheeses. That's a total weight of 120 kilos. Impressive. Next, we visit a farm where they make cheese. After they've curdled hundreds of liters of milk in vats, the farmers, Anneke and Sim, collect the resulting curd and put it in a mold to drain. Anneke suggests I try to mold the little cheeses. I think I'm doing all right for a first-timer. Once the cheeses are taken out of the molds, they'll be kept in a cellar for several weeks. You can eat them young, after 6 weeks, or older after 6 months, or very old after a year and a half.
Nog een keer. Wie nog meer?
After all this hunting, I think I'll have to resort to magic if I want to find a present. Speaking of which, there's a witch's house in the little town of Oedewater. People have been coming here for 400 years from all over Europe to prove that they're not a witch or a sorcerer. Jeanette, who takes care of this place, first asked me if I might not be one. Of course not.
Ja, help jij moeder wel eens in de keuken?
She says it's better to be sure. So she weighs me on this big scale. Because they say that witches are lighter than ordinary human beings, so they can fly off on their brooms.
Je bent vreemd.
Phew! Jeanette assures me that I'm not a witch. That's a relief, since in the old days they used to burn them on the village square. We've arrived back home exhausted. I'm a little disappointed because we didn't really find anything. Yet we traveled miles. We crossed the entire country. Fortunately, we have the photo of us in costume, but I still feel something's missing.
Ik weet al.
Of course, that's it. Daddy, surprise! Guess what we've got for your birthday? Yes. Yes, it was so obvious. A bouquet of tulips, the flower that best symbolizes the Netherlands. Happy birthday, Daddy.